Okay, this is I think part 5 now of the 64 Sea King. This is carburetor clean and overhaul. I just took this carburetor apart to see if there's any dirt in it. There is a little bit of dirt down in the bottom. So I just used some cheap carburetor cleaner and I go through and clean all the passages out and make sure everything is nice and clean. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I cleaned out the bowl here. So now what I want to do is, this is where the high speed goes through, so I want to make sure that this is clean. So I stick the straw in and I just spray it until it comes out through the nozzle at the bottom down there. So I don't know if you can see that, probably not. And then I will go through up here through the high speeds and spray that all out. This is going to be your low speed or idle adjustment, so I want to spray that out real good. And I want to go through all of the passages I can find on the carburetor and make sure everything is nice and clean and clear on it, because that will sit there and that will make sure that you have a good idle quality on your motor. Another thing during these motors is there's on the back side of the carburetor here facing the motor, there will be a couple of small holes on this end of the carburetor back here, and that's your idle circuit. You want to make sure all these holes, everything here is nice and clean and clear and flowing really well. And everything so far seems to be flowing nice and clear. So this here is your main high-speed nozzle. This nozzle drops down in the carburetor on the top side there. This is your low-speed feed nozzle here. This one here has a series of holes in it, one on this side, one on this side, and the center tube is hollow. You want to make sure all that is nice and clean. You put that in, you screw it in, and you're going to screw it down until it's snug. You don't need to reef any of this stuff in tight. You just put it in until it's good and snug. Tighten it up a little bit, like so. This needle here is your low speed idle. This one goes in here. Put that one in. Usually I'll put it in until it seats, so you just thread it in lightly until it stops. Once it stops, you're seated. Don't force it. Then I'll back it off about a turn and a half. This is your high speed needle right here. This controls the engine mixture at high speed. This needle goes in here. Now what you want to do is you want to thread in the main needle part until it seats, and then you're going to back it off about one turn. Okay, this is the jam nut. It's the friction nut, so that makes it so the needle doesn't just keep turning when the engine's running from the vibration. This nut, you want to tighten it up. You don't want to make it tight, you just want to snug it. And you want to be able to make sure you can still turn your high-speed needle here. So you just want it to the point where you can turn it without too much effort. If it's too loose, you tighten up the jam nut a little bit more. If it's too tight, you loosen up the jam nut a bit. That's all there is to that. This is the top of the carburetor. This goes on here. This is your fuel in. You want to make sure that that is nice and clean and clear. Which that one appears to be. This is your seat for your needle and seat. You want to make sure this is nice and clear, nice and clean, everything good and clean. There needs to be a washer on this. You can see this red washer right here that goes on for the seat, and this threads back in here, like so. You're going to want a nice, good, high quality big screwdriver for this, so you can thread that back in and snug that up. If you don't have a good screwdriver, it makes it really a pain to get these out. So that goes in there. This is your float with your needle. You want to make sure all that is clean. So I'll go ahead and clean that all off. And that has a little hook on it, and that hook just grabs the float like so. Set the float back in place, It's got this little nylon pin. Pin goes in place. Line up the float and the pin. Push that back in. Like so. Now, the other thing you want to keep an eye on is the float level. Okay, this float level is actually set a little bit low. Okay, because you got to realize this sits in the carburetor like this. Gas goes up, shuts off the fuel supply. It's down, lets the fuel supply in. So it's actually set a little bit on the low side. So what I will do is I'll take my needle nose pliers here and I'll just give it a little bit of a bend. Not quite enough there. And you want your float to sit pretty much level, perpendicular there. So now, put this back on, the cover. You get your 3 screws that hold the cover on. Now that carburetor is nice and clean and ready to be reinstalled on the motor. I will stop the video here and we'll pick up on the next one. Thank you for watching.